Right? Step one is to start now. You probably should have started a while ago. Step two is see step one. Just go to the next slide. This is what we get called into all the time is your current state looks like something on the left, and it's overwhelming. You've got files, Julie, we've got a client that is involved in making military uniforms. You wouldn't think that's a big deal, but if they have to start ramping up production of military uniforms, it's probably sending a signal that something's going to go on if they're shipping some to a certain location, right? So all that data that you don't really think about, or how does it all connect, it is interconnected. At the end of the day, we all do business with the federal government in some way, shape, or form, which typically ties back to the DoD. So your current state looks like on the left, and people just panic. They keep passing the buck, and they say, well, wait a minute, books on the left, that's finance, and those ones over there are inventory. So this isn't my problem. This is a community problem because data doesn't really belong to anybody per se. So they pass the buck. And they end up having, like my garage gets occasionally, it looks like the thing on the left. The desired state is the thing over there on the right. That's what everybody wants to get to, but they're so intimidated by the current state they don't get started. So that's step one, is to pick up a few books, look inside of them, put a sticker on the back that says, here's what's actually in this book, and put it on the proper shelf to the right. But recognize that the one-time project of cleaning up the left will get you to the right. And then the second you have it done, you're going to have to start over again, because somehow my garage never stays perfectly clean. Neither does your data, because it's constantly moving, constantly changing. And what Scott talked about, what I talked about with the changing definitions of sensitive data, all that stuff. So you got to build a program. If you think of this as a project as one and done, you're going to continue to be probably have a problematic profile in terms of your overall data posture. So Scott, why don't you walk us through a couple of things that people can do, because these are always interesting now that both you and Julie have scared the crap out of us. What can we do to get started to solve the problem?
Sure, and yes, thank you, Tony, for finishing. Yeah, why don't you just finish the whole list here, because I want to talk from a threshold question. The question is, whenever you do have data, and this relates back to the chart I had earlier, asking yourself, is this sensitive? How do I know if it's not? Okay, and that's the question that I ask my clients when I say, okay, great, we're going through all this data, we're trying to find the things that we need to spend the most time on, the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your sensitive data is going to consume 80% of your resources because it's the data that needs to be protected the most. Asking yourself, what qualifies as that 20%, and how do you know? And a lot of that is going to come out of your data inventory. That's why this is so important, because when you ask those questions, like I ask clients, well, where did this come from, and how do we know that it's legitimate to begin with? Because a lot of times when you get advertising and marketing data, a lot of times people don't want to know where it came from. They just want to know that it works. And that was a mentality we had before GDPR that had to go out the window, but unfortunately it still exists today. So long story short, having a very good idea of what qualifies as sensitive, depending on the context, understanding where it is, asking hard questions now so that you don't have to have long explanations later, is crucial. And the question is, ultimately, what am I doing with it? And what are the people that I've licensed this to or sharing this with, what are they doing with it? At the end of the day, that's really going to define how you develop your data protection program.
And Scott, one quick comment on that defining, and then we'll go to Q&A. Another example, another client, what is sensitive to that organization is they're in the logistics business. It's the weight of a pallet, because they do business with the DoD. And I can, from a weigh bill, if I know the weight of a pallet, I could probably deduce that it's military equipment that's on that particular truck, even though it's a commercial trucking organization. So to your point, define and value personal and sensitive data for your organization. It's going to be specific to your organization. Don't just lean on the list of, well, my credit card numbers are safe, so I'm PCI compliant. Well, I know where my employee data is. What is the things from your organization, especially when it applies to doing business with the DoD? Back to what I talked about with the uniforms, weight of a pallet can also be incredibly sensitive.